Welcome to the shed. Right then, I did promise you a road trip, and I've just been on one. I don't intend to turn this into a local history programme. That's not what this is for. But last week's piece got one comment that stuck with me. Somebody said it made them proud of their Lancashire roots. There's plenty to be proud of round here, if you go looking. And this story is as much a part of that as anything. It changed the shape of civil rights in America. Probably more than most people know. So, here we go. The Battle of Bamber Bridge. So on Tuesday, I got in the car. Bamber Bridge is about 40 minutes from me, just off the M6. You drive through it without noticing, and most people do. There's a pub there called Ye Old Hob Inn. Thatched roof, been there since 1616, back when it was a coaching house called the Black Horse. It's the sort of pub that survived everything Lancashire could throw at it, including, on one night in 1943, 400 bullets. I ordered a pint, found a seat, and sat down. And I'll tell you the story the way I pieced it together. The Americans arrived in 1942. Thousands of them, stationed all over Lancashire. The lads based at Bamber Bridge were the 1511th Quartermaster Truck Regiment. Drivers, black soldiers mostly to a man, with white officers. The American army was segregated then. Their rules brought with them in their kit bags. The trouble was, nobody'd bother to tell Lancashire. The black lads drank in the hob with the locals and got on well. Better than well, by some accounts. So when the American commanders demanded the village run a colour bar, the landlords had a think about it. Now the story goes that all three pubs in the village put up signs, black troops only. Now I'll be honest with you. Historians argue about whether the signs ever existed. One says they did, another could find no record. But I'll tell you why I believe it. I know Lancashire landlords. Tell one of them how to run his pub and see what happens. The 24th of June 1943, a warm night, closing time at the Hob. A young soldier called Eugene Nunn wanted one more beer. The barmaid said no, because it was past last orders. And in Lancashire, that's a law that's older than most. Then 2 American military policemen walked in and tried to arrest him. Not for the beer, but for a uniform violation. He was in his field jacket instead of his dress uniform, and he didn't have a pass. Now both of these are true, as it happens. Both were against their regulations. Now I did many years of policing, and I'll say this much. There are rules that exist to be enforced, and rules that exist to be reached for when you want a reason. Every officer knows the difference, and so does every man who's ever been on the wrong end of it. The MP's unit hadn't taken kindly to how well these lads were getting on in the village. So that night, the wrong jacket choice would do. Now I'm not sure what the MPs expected to happen, but as someone who's done many a pub visit at closing time, I can tell you this. In a Lancashire village, if you go into a pub at closing time to arrest a man over something as simple as his jacket, you'd better know the room. The MPs didn't know that room. The room was full of locals, off-duty service women from the ATS, and the room took the soldiers' side. Somebody asked the obvious question. He's not been doing anything. Why? And there's never been a good answer to that, from any policeman of any nation. It went from words to fists. The MPs came off worse and left. Then they came back with a few more of them. And out on the street, a shot was fired, and a young soldier called William Crossland was dead. The army said crossfire. Witnesses said he was shot in the back. Word reached the camp on Mounty Road that MPs were shooting black soldiers. The men there armed themselves from the base armoury. The MPs turned up with a machine gun mounted on a car. and for the next several hours, in a Lancashire village, 3 miles from Preston, the American army fought itself down Station Road, while the villagers watched from behind their curtains. One woman who saw it from her window lived to 106 and told the story to the end. By morning, it was over. 32 black soldiers were convicted at courts martial. Mutiny, rioting, firing on military police. Sentences up to 15 years, later reduced, and the Army's own inquiry quietly admitted the MPs and the leadership carried much of the blame. William Crossland was buried at the American Cemetery in Cambridge. No cause of his death was listed. And then everybody was told not to talk about it, because there's a war on, and for a long time, nobody did. But something did shift, quietly. The general in charge of the whole 8th Air Force looked into what happened, and he put the blame where it belonged. Not on the soldiers, but on the white officers and the military police who let it get that far. The MP patrols stopped being all white after that. 5 years later, in 1948, President Truman signed the order that ended segregation across the whole of the American Armed Forces. One of the men who'd been there on that night in Bamber Bridge said, years afterwards, that this was where it all started from. That after what they'd lived through here, he was never going back to being treated as a second-class soldier again. Now, a fair few of you reading this are American, so you'll likely know that presidential order. What you might not have known is it's got a Lancashire fingerprint on it. Bamber Bridge talks about it now. There's a memorial garden opposite the Hob, put there in 2022, and every June the village marks the anniversary. Last year they traced Crossland's niece, a lady in Maryland, who never knew her uncle, and she walked into the Hob to find it a room full of briggers waiting to shake her hand. I'd looked round the pub at some of the memorabilia on the walls, the newspaper cuttings, and the original plaque, which had a spelling mistake on it. I finished my pint and went and stood by the new plaque for a bit. I had a walk up to the Mounty Road site as well. The only sign anyone was ever stationed there now is a hut, home to the 2376 Squadron, the Bamber Bridge Air Cadets. Then I got back in the car and drove home. Nobody in Bamber Bridge in 1943 thought they were making a stand. There were no speeches, no marches, just a barmaid enforcing last orders, the same for everybody. Landlords who wouldn't be told, and a room full of ordinary people who saw a man being pushed around and said the words every officer dreads from a crowd, "Leave him alone, he's done nought wrong." Every copper carries more than one tool in his toolbox. That night, the MPs reached for the wrong one, the big hammer. So that was Lancashire's contribution to American civil rights. A pub that wouldn't pick sides in a village that already had. Something to be proud of, I think. If you want more of these type of stories, not history lessons, just things I notice, subscribing's free. And if you know someone who'd like it, tell them. That's the only advertising this shed has ever got. And if you need an explanation of the big hammer, then this is where it's from. A piece called He Told Them Out Loud to a Microphone that I wrote a little bit earlier. Have a read, it's in the archives if you want. Mrs. C greeted me when I got in. "Where have you been?" she said. So I told her. "Took you long enough to find a pub 40 minutes away." Ah well, kettle's on. See you next time.
Words like morning rain. Pull up a chair and stay a while. I'm very glad you came. There's a gaudy Turkish barber where the butcher used to be, and a vape shop not the cafe where the old lads drank their tea. Letters from the shed, stories soft and true, yourself a cup of tea. I saved a seat for